A Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Men of Real Estate Radio Talk Show. My name is Curtis the Boss Doss, and I'm your host for the next hour. I'm a real estate broker in Southwest Riverside County. I've been doing real estate for over 15 years. I sit on several boards and committees, and I'm an instructor for the California Association of Realtors. Because of all my real estate involvement in so many areas, I have earned the nickname The Boss. And today I have a very special guest in the studio, Steve Madley. Now, you probably remember Steve as one of the original Real Men of Real Estate television talk show. Steve and I have been friends for about 10 years, and just a little bit about Steve. He's a residential contractor. He's also an agency construction manager, developer, investor, land acquisition and entitlement expert, and an educator. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Steve Madley to the show. Welcome, Steve.
It is such a privilege to sit here next to Curtis, the Boss Doss, on Real Men of Real Estate.
Thank you, sir. And today, I want to talk to Steve about investing and going through some of the different aspects of investing. So first of all, Steve, tell me a little bit more about the areas that you were involved in with investing.
We have several areas. The primary area we invest in is raw land. We buy large tracts of land, we do the mapping, and then we sell them to builders and developers. We have done commercial as well. Mostly it's for R1 single family, and the only reason is that's the highest demand item out there right now in real estate. As you know, the single family home is gold.
Absolutely. And so with that, wanted to delve into your brain a little bit and talk to you about some of the ways you can get involved. And I wanted to also ask you about from the basics. So if you're just a basic investor, what are the two types of investors?
Well, okay, there's multiple types of investors, but I think what you're referring to is the two classifications of investors.
Correct.
From a monetary standpoint, according to the IRS.
Exactly.
And that is an accredited or a non-accredited investor.
Okay.
Okay, so accredited investors pretty much know who they are and that they're accredited, because to be accredited, there's a definition of that. And it changes from time to time as the dollar values are worth different amounts. I believe right now it's $200,000 of net income or $1 million of net worth, not including your primary residence. That would make you an accredited investor. And the non-accredited investor would be someone that does not have that. So they're investing and they have less net worth or less net income every year. Really what's the government's doing is they're looking out for what's probably the smaller, less sophisticated, more naive investor. Okay. So that usually an accredited investor, basically they have enough money that if they lost their money in that investment, they're not going to be homeless. They're going to eat, right? The non-accredited investor would be the person you're concerned about that puts their investment dollars in, and if they lose it, they could actually have a lifestyle issue. Because of that, and that's why they kind of look out for that. We use both accredited and non-accredited investors. We do not certify if they're accredited because we form our projects so that they're kind of exempt from that, which means we don't publicly advertise them or anything like that. They're kind of family, friends, and friends of friends type investors.
Okay.
But if you do the larger investors, they're usually looking for accredited investors and there'll be a private placement memorandum and all those kind of things. That gets into a lot of other hairy stuff, though.
Gotcha. So to clarify to someone who may be wondering, is that $200,000 for the non-accredited investor? Is that what they bring in net every year?
That's an annual income, yeah. And I believe it's maybe $300,000 as a married couple or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So I would tell somebody, because I'm not a tax accountant or a tax attorney, I would say check that. You can actually, I have a good friend that knows everything if you just ask. His name is Google. And so you just go and ask Google and what accredited versus non-accredited investor and what the current definition is going to pop right up.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And I'm friends with Google too, and I found out that Google actually bounces this information off God. So together they work really good.
Well, I've heard that, but I've also heard they go to the other source sometimes too. It just depends what you're looking for.
Depends on what the devil's in the details,
That's
right?
right, that's right.
Absolutely. So if someone was, let's say, a non-accredited investor, is there a certain minimum that your company works with for them to get involved?
Yeah, so that's project by project.
Oh, okay.
So here's how we figure things out. We look at what is the total amount of capital we need for a project.
Okay.
And as it's 506B is the rule under Regulation D that we work with. That gives us 35 or less non-accredited investors. So we figure, okay, so we've got that many investor positions. So I usually back it down to 20 or 25 positions, divide that, the total capital we need by that, and say, okay, that's going to be the minimum required. Now, the larger the minimum, the greater the probability the investor will probably be accredited.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say our investors, probably most of them are accredited. I do know that some of our investors were non-accredited when they first started working with us, but after they've stayed with us for project after project after project, they're now accredited investors. And I'm sure
really
they were doing
encouraging.
other smart money management as well. It wasn't just us, I'm sure.
Right. So what you're saying is basically they started out small, but because they kept going back to the well and they kept making wise decisions, they were able to graduate to an accredited.
Yeah, and I said, I'm
investor.
sure they're investing in other things, rentals and apartments, or who else knows what else they have. They've been building portfolios and probably have stock portfolios and those things too.
Okay.
But I just know when they started with us, they were all they could do to scrape together the minimum kind of a thing. But we are very careful when we talk to investors. Investors have to vet us, obviously.
Correct.
Right? They need. If you're an investor out there listening to this, do not give your money to anybody or any entity until you've fully vetted. Do your homework. Talk to your tax accountant. Talk to an attorney. Talk to anybody that's got expertise. If you know someone that really knows real estate, talk to them about it. Do your homework. Cyber stalk the people you're giving the money to. Right? The website, social media. Check whatever they got. We do the same for our investors. We do the same to them because we don't just take money from anybody. I never want money from somebody who is going to stay awake all night for the duration of the investment, wondering where it's coming back. Because some people just don't have it's just the personality thing. They're
Right.
very risk averse.
Correct.
If mutual funds is where they need to be, that's where they need to be. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to go into speculative real estate investments if that's something that makes you nervous or takes your peace of mind. There is no amount of IRR or ROI that can justify taking your peace of mind away.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So for the recap for that initial investor that's not an accredited investor, as we've said twice on the show, and we'll beat this horse to death, you always want to make sure that you seek advice from an attorney. We're not attorneys. And also from a CPA, because those are the professionals. And make sure that you kind of count the cost, weigh the risk, and then also no matter who you're going to be investing with, make sure you do your homework and vet them. And with the internet in Google, it's pretty much easy to find out what you need to know at your fingertips, right?
Absolutely. And I joke with people a lot. I am not an accountant. I don't have an accounting degree, but I always considered I got a CPA because when I graduated, I couldn't pass again. So.
And I'm not an attorney, although I do play one on TV. No, just kidding. So definitely check with the professionals before making any investment. And Steve, you brought up a good point. You don't want to invest with someone that's going to be worried and up at night worrying about the fund. So again, if you are going to jump in and go with both feet into it, you want to make sure this is money that could possibly not yield a return that you're looking for.
You could lose your principal.
You could lose your
You could lose your principal. That's just the bottom line. If that wasn't part of it, why would there be an upside? Why would there be money to be made? So people will sometimes talk to me when we talk, they say, is there any guarantees? I say, yeah, the guarantee is there's no guarantees. See, because we don't control the universe. Now,
Correct.
I did once buy a universal remote control, and I was very disappointed. It doesn't actually control the universe, not even remotely.
You fell for
I
that
was
too,
disappointed.
right?
I'm very disappointed. So because of that, life is full of risk. And that risk is usually commensurate with the reward. The greater the risk, the more the reward. That's also when you get with the non-accredited investors, one of the concerns is, I don't want your grocery money, I don't want your mortgage money, I don't want your kid's college fund, I don't want your retirement account. Now, if you have a self-directed IRA that is designed to invest in things like real estate, that's fine.
Okay.
Don't go borrow against your company 401k and pay, all the interest on it in order to invest in a deal over here that you could lose because you owe that back.
Got
right?
it. So be smart about it.
Be smart about it. That's right. And only invest money. Don't go borrow money from your brother-in-law to go invest, okay? Only invest money that you have and you know there's a chance of losing it. It's like anything else. So gambling's not investing at all.
Right.
But if you're going to go to Las Vegas for a weekend, do you take your grocery money and go out there and put it in a slot machine?
No, you gamble responsibly.
Yes, you take the money you saved up specifically to entertain yourself.
Right.
And you use that, and when it's gone, you stop.
Exactly.
That's all the money you had to entertain yourself, and that's what you did, right?
Gotcha.
So investing,
Absolutely.
you put the money in that you could afford to lose if you need to, and if it does come back with a big return, you're dancing in the street, you celebrate, you share it with all your friends, and if you lose it, you cry a little bit, and you say, well, darn, that didn't work out very well. But if you're a mature person, you say that was the risk I took. Now, I am proud to say we've never lost a dollar of investor capital. That does not mean in any way that could never happen.
Correct. Right. Well, I want to touch on, and I know we've got a little bit of time before the commercial break, but I wanted to touch on, you decided to go in a specific direction out of all of the accolades that you had. You decided to go with land and with the acquisition of land. So tell me a little bit about that and why you chose that area.
Well, I come out of a construction background. And I know enough about construction that even though the land, real estate acquisition and entitlement is supposed to be the higher risk end of the deal, there's a lot of risk in construction. A lot of risk. And again, I actually teach construction at the college level. I run a program. And so I'm considered an expert in it. And I know enough to know that you can be sued for defect. You can have injuries of your workers, right?
Right.
There can be any kind of collapse or problem on a project site. Your backhoe can be coming out of the site and run over the lady walking down the street next to the site. All these things happen, right?
Right. Hypothetically.
Yeah, this stuff happens. And construction is actually the second most injury-prone industry in the country. It's just what it is, right? So all those risks, I found it's a lot less work, and to me, less of that exposure for more potential upside if I do the acquisition and entitlement part of it and don't do the actual construction. That's my personal preference, and that's the preference of the two partners I have in my company.
All right.
Other people obviously don't believe that because they do the construction, and we love working with them because to them, they don't want the risk of doing the real estate side of it. They're more comfortable with the construction.
Okay, perfect. So that gives us some direction as far as why you chose the direction that you chose, and it'd probably be one of the directions that most of the initial investors will want to go in.
So my joke is we do it because we're greedy and lazy. It's the most amount of money with the least amount of effort we can figure out, honestly.
All right, that
channel those
great.
negative characteristics, right?
All right, well, we're going to go to commercial. When we come back, we're going to finish up with talking to Steve Matley.
FireUp Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. FireUp Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. FireUp Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
I love how New School is able to help me greatly with my career.
Because they actually have experience working in the field.
The greatest thing about New School is the fact that there are so many different disciplines, which allows you to really understand and get a good insight into different types of design. And I think it's that whole changing mindset of what design can really do for a city, and this is kind of the place to be.
This environment cultivates creative thinking.
Hi, this is Steve Matley. As a construction professional, I know the importance of selecting the right contractor for the job. Power Solar employs only professional installers. Power Solar will provide a knowledgeable consultant to help analyze your current electric bill, identify site placement, and correct solar technology for your home. Contact KCAA Producer at gmail.com for a free financial savings proposal with no obligation, or call 951-551-1350 and ask for Ken. Again, that's KCAA Producer at gmail.com or 951-551-1350 and ask for Ken.
Welcome back to Real Men of Real Estate Radio Talk Show, and I'm your host, Curtis the Boss Doss, and I am here with special guest Steve Matley. And right before the commercial, we were talking to Steve about acquisitions and entitlements for investment. So, Steve, break that down for us. What exactly does that mean?
That's a good question, because as we're talking, there's probably people at home going, what in the world is this guy talking about? Okay, acquisitions, that must be art he's buying, and entitlement, he's referring to his, millennial kid that won't move out of the basement and wants all the credit cards. That's not what we're talking about at all. So acquisitions means real estate acquisition. It's the process of procuring or buying the real estate. And that sounds pretty simple, because usually you go to your real estate agent and they drive you around and you look at a house and you put in an offer. When you're doing land, it's a whole different deal. It's commercial and land and those things, that's a different world. We never buy real estate that's listed on the market. So we're not going to go to the MLS, and there's no real estate agent that we're going to call up and say, hey, can we talk about that 50 acres out there? We have to diligently search for it. We we find it ourselves. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a team of us that do it. I'm pretty good at it, but my partner's much better. He loves it. It's like the game he likes to play, finding that land. So first thing we do is we profile the type of property we're looking for. So let's say we go into an area and we say, okay, this is the area we want to work in, because we know from all the market studies and what's going on that this is a growth area. If we bought land and entitled it, a builder would have a very high probability of purchasing this from us at a high price, because they have a high probability of getting people to buy the homes they're going to build on them at a high price, right? Okay. This is the way it works, right? Now, when I say at a high price, I mean the highest of that level. So we kind of focus on entry level. But there's you want the best price you can within that entry-level price point. And the reason entry-level, again, is because that's the number one demand item. We're in California. Right. There's not a lot affordable anywhere. Exactly. Okay, so we do the entry-level because that is the number one demand item, is a single-family home that's at the lower price point that you can access. It's kind of a first home kind of a deal, right? Okay. So that's what we focus on. And we'll highlight an area. And we do this in right now, currently in Florida, Texas, Arizona, California. We've been looking at some other areas as well. And we'll find the land based upon that market. We'll look at the agency having jurisdiction, meaning the city or the county that's going to approve it or permit it, right? Okay. Whoever you have to go to get permission is what that is, okay? And find out, do they want it? And if they want it, do they want that kind of a project on this particular piece of dirt? Oh, okay. Right? Because you can't just do what you want anywhere you want. I can't just go buy 20 acres and go build a bunch of homes on it and say, isn't that great? The neighbors will have something to say about it. The city has something to say about it. Local utilities have something to say about it, right? Correct. Okay, so you got to make sure all this stuff works. So there's a lot of upfront. And so the first thing we do is kind of profile the property. This is what we're looking for. Roughly this many acres in this jurisdiction with this type of zoning or this type of a general plan designation. Those are how the local agency, county or city, determine what they would like on different pieces of land. The zoning is what is, the general plan is what could be, or what they'd like to see. Okay. And if you're within those, there's a lot less hurdles to jump through, because you're not asking for variances. You're not asking to do something that wasn't what they wanted. Right. You want to do what they said they want in their city. You're coming in as kind of a guest into someone else's town. Right. And so what you're hopefully delivering is what they want and what they need in a high quality way, so that you leave them better than you found them, and at the same time your investors in your project works, right? So it works for you too. Perfect. Okay. So then once we go and negotiate that, we find that out, we find the owners of the land, we contact them, we ask them, would you be interested in selling your land to us? Right? Okay. If we can get that deal worked out where we can purchase the land, and again, they didn't have it listed, so they may not have intended to sell it, but we find out. Sometimes they're more than willing to sell it. They say, actually, that's going to solve a great problem for me.
And is there a reason, Steve, why you guys prefer to go with things that aren't listed on the MLS versus kind of your private acquisition?
Usually what is already on the MLS, if it's listed, It's usually, how would I say? It's usually going to have more competition for it.
Got it.
More people are after it, which is going to drive the price up and give you a
Correct.
lower probability. If you're the only one talking to the owner, there's a chance they could say no because they didn't have it listed, but you're the only one talking to them.
So
right?
kind of like in residential, where when you've got a home that hits the market, everybody and their brother can see it. But what if it's kind of a pocket listing? It's more.
That's right. Yeah.
Of an intimate kind of bidding
That's
situation.
right. That's right.
Okay.
Right. And you're getting, and so you're kind of, and you get more of an access to the seller directly. Listed, you're only going through an agent, and we like
Right.
to talk to the owner themselves. We have nothing against real estate agents, but the truth is we like to talk directly. The
Makes
agent can sit there and
smart
watch us.
business
We
sense.
tell the agent, come, don't say a thing, watch and learn. Right? So,
Great advice.
yeah. And then you can do it someday yourself. That's okay.
Sounds good.
So once we do it, so now you've got the land, but it's just land. And let's say you bought it and it's still zoned agriculture. Okay, so you can't go build a bunch of homes on there.
Correct.
Because as an agricultural land, maybe you can only do 2 or 3 dwelling units on there on the 40 or 50 acres. You've got to get it entitled. Entitled means getting permission from the local agency, the county or the city, to change what it is to what it needs to be. Okay, so I take one parcel that's 40 acres of alfalfa farm or dirt or whatever it was, and it could be an old dairy, it just could be open land, whatever. And usually it's usually fallow agriculture. Then, and it's in a path of growth, okay? And the city says, yeah, we'd like that there, because when you do that, that's going to provide a widened street there. It's going to provide you're going to be putting money into a signalized intersection. It's going to put money into our schools. That's what happens with development.
Which in
right?
turn is going to help the city and the county
That's
as
right.
a whole.
Now, not all cities believe this. Some cities say, we've got enough, thank you very much. We don't want you here. And that's fair. That's their city. They
Yeah,
get to do
makes
that,
sense.
right? Other cities say, honestly, we'd like that growth, because with the growth comes better infrastructure and resources for us locally here, right? And that helps us. Those are usually emerging, growing cities, right?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. So it's whatever they want. And so you work with them, what do they want? And then there's a process. Is it feasible? Is the soil right? Is there drainage? Do you need to bring, is there the right kind of dirt out there? What's the environmental, meaning biological issues? Are there plants or animals that you're going to be disturbing or having, endangered species? Is there cultural issues? Is there historical sites? Is there Native American grounds there that need to be preserved? Whatever it is there paleontological issues? Meaning, are there fossils out there, right?
Wow.
So all these things you have to look at, and you do all these reports and studies, and what's going to happen to the traffic? What's going to happen to the noise, right? How are we going to get? There's going to be now 300 more people living here.
Correct.
And that's more cars on the road. So what do we have to do to mitigate that impact? Okay, you got to widen the street. You got to help with the signalized intersection. You got to put money into the schools so they can add more seats, right?
Right,
right.
exactly.
It's this thing: Parks and Rec district, street lighting, all the stuff. So all that stuff's got to get taken care of. And then what happens when it rains? Where's the water going to go? Do we have a way to deal with that, right?
Exactly.
Okay. This is the entitlement process.
Wow.
And then when you get through that, and it can be very lengthy or it can be very short depending where you are and how aggressive they are at wanting development and what the
Right.
requirements are. In California, it's quite the process, which also, while it's a lot of brain damage, it also makes it very lucrative, right? Because believe me, people will gladly pay us to do that for them. Okay.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Because
So
any
a
builder
lot
could
of
do it
these-
themselves.
So a lot of these things that you're talking about, is this something that you kind of do the legwork ahead of time before you even go to acquire the land?
Oh, a lot of due diligence. So what happens
Okay.
is we'll put the land under contract, and okay, so you're a realtor,
exactly.
and you know that sometimes people want to put things in escrow, and they want an opportunity to get a
home inspection,
or a termite inspection, right?
Kick the tires,
and
right.
and there's a length of time. Maybe they get a week to do all that,
Right, to
Okay.
remove the contingencies.
With ours, because it's much larger, more complicated, we'll get 90 days to 120 days to do
Oh,
that.
okay.
Because our escrows can be 2 years long.
Good to know. Good to know. Perfect. So you're doing the due diligence. You're dealing with all kinds of things, maybe even CEQA things.
Well, then all of that goes to CEQA.
All that goes to
so
CEQA.
CEQA and NEPA.
Okay.
You're familiar with both, right?
Well, so now I'm
let's define
familiar
it.
with CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. But
That's right.
what's the other one for all those
That's
listeners out there,
the
including myself, that don't know what that is?
Federal version, the National Environmental Protection Act.
Whoa.
NEPA is the federal, think EPA,
Okay.
and Department of Interior stuff. CEQA is the state. Okay, so think all the state agencies that come in, and so and all of that is it's really the process of letting all your neighbors tell you what you can or can't do on your own land. And that sounds intrusive and horrible, but the fact is, if you lived in a nice little house and next to you, elementary school was 2 blocks down and your kid walked every day, would you want a strip bar built between you and the school?
I think I'd be what's called a NIMBY,
Exactly,
not in my backyard.
Right. Or
And
would
I
you
would have
want
something to say
or
about
would you
that.
want a car lot going in next door in your residential neighborhood? No.
Probably a really good restaurant.
Yeah, so it's not an appropriate use, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, therefore, we have a public hearing process to make sure that whatever we're doing is benefiting the community and not detrimental to it. And it's what the community wants and what they need.
Makes sense.
That's why your neighbors get permission to tell you what you can do on your own land, because otherwise it could be it's the Wild West out there otherwise.
Gotcha.
So as frustrating as it is for people like me, I fully understand and appreciate it as just a regular citizen.
Right. And how hard is it to meet with the city officials to get the entitlement process going? Is it a tedious process?
Entirely dependent upon which the city or the county you're working with. Entirely dependent upon. Some really don't want that. They make it very difficult because they are very developed out and they can be very picky and choosy about what they want. Okay, you need them much more than they need you. Other cities, they need you more than you need them because they red carpets rolled out because they would love to have the revenue and the additional population. Remember, more homes as much as that is a burden to a city. If you get enough rooftops, you get more commercial, which is where cities make money, right?
That makes sense.
So if they want the Super Target to come out there and build, Super Target says, yeah, we aren't coming out there till you got 50,000 rooftops within a certain radius, right? And right now you only got 22. Right.
So call us back when you got those extra homes.
And so now the city says, the houses actually create a burden to take care of them, but if we can get enough of them, we get the Super Target, which means all the other little businesses that come along with it, with the center, right?
Right.
So now you got all these businesses are all generating local tax revenue for the city.
And more rooftops mean more people living in the community, which means more jobs, more people out there producing income.
So that's what happens is that engenders that, and now that center that built is employing people.
All
right. And so it becomes that growth model where it kind of helps, it becomes sustainable, right? There are cities that are sustainable. There's other cities where basically everybody has to drive in somewhere else to go to work.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we see a lot of that where if you live in Riverside County and you work in San Diego County, because it's a lot less expensive to live in the one county and then work in the other.
But it's shifting because back in the 1990s, almost everybody that lived in Riverside County was driving to LA, Orange, or San Diego County to go to work.
Very true.
Now there's a lot of people that are going to work in Southwest Riverside County pretty close to where they live.
Very true. Very, very true. All right, so to recap, we've talked about what an accredited investor is and a non-accredited investor. We've also now touched on acquisition and entitlement. So I feel I've learned a lot. Hopefully the audience has learned a whole lot as well.
Good, because there's going to be a quiz.
Oh, there will be a quiz. So you
got
guys
the
heard it
syllabus,
here.
right?
There will be a quiz. So hopefully you've been taking notes. I have a cheat sheet. I've got Steve right here, and it's an open book test for me. But that's fantastic. So we're going to go to a commercial in a few minutes here, and then we're going to come back and pick Steve's brains a little bit more, and we'll also give you a number to if you've got any more questions. So we're going to go to commercial, and we will be back very shortly.
I love how New School is able to help me greatly with my career.
Because they actually have experience working in the field.
The greatest thing about New School is the fact that there are so many different disciplines, which allows you to really understand and get a good insight into different types of design. And I think it's that whole changing mindset of what design can really do for a city, and this is kind of the place to be.
This environment cultivates creative thinking.
FireUp Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. FireUp Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. FireUp Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Hi, My name is Curtis the Boss Doss, and I want to remind you that the solar energy tax credit expires at the end of the year. This could potentially cost you $5,000 to $10,000 in tax-free money if you wait until January of 2022. Give my friend Ken a call at 951-551-1350. Let me repeat that number, 951-551-1350. I would be remiss as your local realtor not to make you aware of these financial benefits. You can also email kcaaproducer@gmail.com, and they will be more than happy to send you the information. This is Curtis the Boss Doss, and it is time to prepare for your year end. Thank you for your time. Okay, and we're back with Real Men of Real Estate Radio Talk Show. My name is Curtis the Boss Doss, and once again, I have a special guest in the studio. His name is Steve Matley. And when we went to commercial, Steve was telling us about the whole acquisition and entitlement process. And so, Steve, was there anything else you wanted to add in on that as far as entitlement and working with the cities?
Well, I will tell you, it's very different depending where you are. We've had entitlement processes that could take many years. Here in California, if you're, say, on the water, coastal commission kind of territory, that can take many years to get those kind of approvals done. Some projects will take up to 10 years or even longer. Other areas, you can go in and get in and out in, say, 18 months to 24 months. Out of state, we frequently have jobs that can be done, honestly, in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
That would take longer. But it's just a difference in how the different jurisdictions, states, counties, cities view what the process needs to be and how stringent they want to be on it. And a lot of it has to do with the city's resources. We work in a lot of cities that are not large cities or smaller cities, and they have limited resources. They have a very small staff. Okay. And so things will take a little longer if they have a lot of people wanting to do work in their area.
Okay.
So
now we'll bring it home because I am in Southwest Riverside County.
Yes.
My office is in Temecula, and I live in Murrieta. And so, some great cities out there. You've got, as I mentioned, Murrieta, Temecula. You've got Wildomar. You've got Menifee. You've got Lake Elsinore and things like that. How hard has it been, or how easy has it been to do what you do out in those areas?
So we work in Southwest Riverside County, but most of the cities you mentioned we have not done work in, and here's why. Most of them have been developed enough. We tend to go to the underdeveloped areas because, again, we're doing entry-level single-family homes.
Right.
And to get the price points where they need to be, Temecula at this point is built out enough and is in such high demand, and there's very little land left.
Right.
It's going to be expensive.
Exactly.
And you're not going to get an entry-level price point because the land starts at such a high amount of money and the demand's so high. So you have to go further out. Years ago we were doing things. I've done projects in Murrieta. I've done projects in Menifee and in Wildomar under different companies because the company we have now wasn't the company we had back then.
Right.
And we've also done things out in the San Jacinto Valley, Hemet and San Jacinto, Paris area, those type of things.
Okay.
So we've done them a lot of other places as well. And we tend to go to, I say, the emerging, what do we call the emerging cities, the ones that are starting, they're kind of in their adolescence right now. And because that's where you can still get some land, there's enough amenities so it's livable. There's a place to shop, there's schools, there's parks, there's those kind of things. So you're not out in the middle of nowhere. They're good cities to live in, but they're smaller usually, and they don't have all of the things. They don't have the super mall in their city. They may not have a Costco in their city and those kind of things, right?
Right.
Or a lot of them, they will, if they continue to grow, they will. So in fact, Elsinore, they got a Costco in, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. And
Murrieta actually is going to be putting a Costco in. The open date to be announced, but right off of Clinton Keefe off of 215.
And that's good because the Temecula Costco is one of the most impacted Costcos I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely.
It is impossible to get in and out of that place. So anything to relieve that congestion would be great.
Yeah, I've got a buddy that has worked there for years, and I believe he told me that they're one of the busiest Costco's probably in the state, if not in the nation. So.
Right, and so those areas we don't do a lot of work in. We do the kind of the lesser developed areas, and we out of state as well. We're working in Arizona. We don't do anything in the city of Phoenix or city of Scottsdale. We do things in the outlying towns, right? In Texas, we're not in San Antonio, but we're in outlying areas around there.
Got it.
Florida, Ocala area. So we're in Jacksonville area, but not in the city.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's suburbia, right?
So the densely
suburbia.
populated areas that have almost no inventory, like we mentioned in Riverside County. We've been hurting for inventory for
And,
years.
and people do what we do in those places, and they do them well. A lot of that is going to be as cities mature, they go from that to multifamily.
Okay.
Right? They go to the mixed use. So, like, say, the city of Temecula. In 1992, if somebody would have told you that you could build a 4 to 6 story mixed use building on, Front Street in Old Town Temecula, and have shops and restaurants and brew pubs on the bottom and people living on the upper floors, and they'd actually rent them out, would you believe them?
I would not have believed it, because in 1992, Temecula was only 3 years old. It was founded in '89, so that would have been
It was a
faith.
community, because it had been Rancho California under the old county, right?
Yeah.
So it was still kind of out in the middle of nowhere. The
Right.
freeway had barely been finished through there.
Exactly.
And the truth is, why would you move to a place like that there when the whole idea of moving there was you get a half acre and a big house?
Right.
Because you couldn't afford that in the city, in Orange County, right?
Exactly.
Now that's what's happening out there. They're moving in towards the kind of the mid-rise, mixed-use, high-density type buildings there.
Exactly.
That's where that's at. Now, we don't do those. That's why we're not there. If we were doing those kind of projects, we would be there trying to do those kind of projects, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so those kind of projects, where I live in San Diego, very close to downtown, that is all urban. What I'm seeing is those type of mid-rise buildings being torn out for high-rises to go in.
Okay.
They're building 30-story buildings on those kind of properties.
And would you say that that's a form of like regentrification in those areas, or?
Well, it is, and it's gentrification in some areas, but also in other areas, it's just a kind of a higher and better use of the land.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so I buy this place and I've got 10 units on it, and the 10 units are perfectly viable and very rentable, but I could also mow that down, and I could put 100 units in there, right? So,
And generate more income.
and I'd have a full building at a much higher price point, right? Because now I got better views, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a matter of just getting more out of the land, and I'm seeing that in my neighborhood. I live right outside Balboa Park.
Oh, okay.
And I'm watching old commercial buildings and smaller residential buildings being torn out, and these as tall as they can go, because they're kind of close to the flight path of the airport there.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm watching tall, these buildings go in that are 12 to 15, 16 floors going in, which is as high as you can go there. And in downtown, I'm watching the same thing, buildings going up to 30 to 40 floors on sites that had 2 to 4 story buildings on them.
Wow. If you could make a prediction about what you think the skyline would look like in maybe Temecula, Old Town Temecula, in the next 10 years.
Well, and I will say in Temecula, they probably would never allow actual high rises there.
Okay.
But I am guessing they probably get some buildings that are up to probably the 10 to 12 floor level if they wanted to. And where I would guess that might be is the older area that was developed under the county when it was like along Jefferson, along the freeway.
Okay, the
that
Jefferson
older commercial
corridor.
Jefferson corridor.
Okay.
That's probably the natural place for that to go, because that's an area where you end up with the population going to the east and the south, and you're left with some empty commercial buildings and some empty retail buildings because the population doesn't live in that side of town right now.
Correct. Wow.
So hotels.
Exactly.
Right. Condo buildings. And the one thing that they need to do if they do that, and because Temecula has some horrifically bad traffic for a town their size.
Exactly.
It's
I can
worse
attest
traffic
to
there
that.
than it is in the urban centers, honestly.
I can totally attest to
Okay,
that.
and I'm not putting them down. I lived in Temecula for 8 years. I loved it over there. Okay, or actually
Yep,
longer than
absolutely.
12 years actually. I've raised my kids there, so I loved it there. But if they were then to put in some mass transit, not rubber mass transit, I'm talking a monorail, a light rail, something
Right.
like that. I don't care. Carts in the air on a string. I don't know, whatever they do to get people around, to get people from there over to the mall across the freeway without,
Right.
because one of the problems in Temecula, you don't have any way to get across the freeway.
Exactly.
There's only a few access.
Correct.
Right. So, being that you're from that area, I got a few questions for you,
Okay.
because you're like the man down there in real estate. So I walk into SDCAR, and Curtis, the boss Doss, is the boss. So, but you're also a realtor. Are you still actively in real estate, and why did you choose to take so much of your time and give it to these other organizations that you're running?
Well, to answer your first question, yes, still very active in real estate. Been in real estate for about 17 years. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, I'm currently on the board of directors for the Southwest Riverside County Association of Realtors. In 2018, I was actually the president of that association. And one of the reasons that I stay so involved is because on a legislative side, and let me digress and say this: I never wanted to be in politics, but at our association we have what's called the government affairs director, and his key phrase or key tagline is, just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you.
It affects everything.
It affects everything. So through my early years in real estate, I noticed that there were a lot of legislation and rules that were encroaching not only upon us as real estate professionals, but actually as homeowners' rights. And so when I saw that, I felt like, you know what, if I get involved, then I can actually make a difference. And just to give an example of just in the Southwest Riverside County Association, just how involved my fellow realtors are. In 2018, as I mentioned, I was the president. Well, the year before, the president was a guy by the name of Mike Percival. Mike Percival was the mayor of Hemet.
Okay.
And he's still on city council. Our government affairs director that just retired last year, his name was Gene Wunderlich. He was the mayor of Murrieta last year.
Oh, was he? Okay. And he was the government affairs director for quite a while.
And he was our government affairs director for a number of years. And then we've got a realtor that is in Lake Elsinore, Steve Manos, and he's actually on the city council for Lake Elsinore. So you've got a lot of real estate professionals that are actually in the business that care. And so what we found is that when you have real estate friendly politicians that are also, you know, in the field working, then we tend to get legislation passed that's more real estate friendly, and in turn that's going to help the homeowners. Because I know it sounds cliche, but pretty much the largest investment that most people will make in their life is real estate.
It's a fact. And the truth is, real estate as an industry is the answer to a lot of the problems the politicians are trying to solve other ways, like, for example, homeless.
Exactly.
Right? It isn't the very definition of homeless means they don't have any real estate and where to be shelter themselves in, right?
Exactly.
And it seems to be ignored, right?
It
and,
does.
and I've never heard a homeless advocate talk about how real estate ties into all that.
Well, you know what? Some years ago, I was actually a volunteer with a project. It was called Project Touch, and Touch stands for Together Our Unity Conquers Homelessness. And I actually volunteered several nights during the week. I would stay overnight at the shelter, and they told me that because, you know, I'm involved in real estate, but the other reason is I'm a former Marine. So as a Marine Corps veteran, they were like, okay, you know, Curtis can hold down the fort. You know, if he could make it through the Desert Shield, Desert Storm era, and I'll say this, I didn't have to go, but I was in during that time. They said, then I'm sure he can oversee a homeless shelter overnight, a couple of nights. But one of the things that I found was interesting is one time we had a meeting with the city officials, and it was Murrieta, Temecula, and I believe it was Menifee. And I think one of the cities said that the homeless belong to the other city. And I remember standing up laughing and saying, guys, they're homeless. They're everybody's issue. They're not the Murrieta homeless.
Well, if they belong to their city, they'd have a residence in that city. Right?
Exactly. So they were like, well, that's
So
the
that's-
Temecula homeless
they
coming
belong to that
Murrieta.
bridge.
And
Yeah.
I was like, no, they're just homeless, guys. They're everybody's problem. So it kind of made them take notice. And they were like, yeah, I guess that's right. I said, yeah, the key word being homeless. They don't have a home. And so, you know, that's a huge problem in the area. And I have to commend Temecula. They actually, the police chief, I don't know if she's still the police chief at the time, but Lisa McConnell, she actually formed what's called the HOT team, and it stands for Homeless Outreach Team. And so she had dedicated officers that would actually, you know, go out on patrol, and they would try to, you know, help and assist with the homeless that were out there. And so, you know, I commend that city. But yeah, housing and the shortage of housing is a big issue.
Well, and there's been different proposals, like say, you know, tiny home villages and those kind of things.
Right.
And a lot of times, that's a political thing. You got to get pushed through if that's going to be a solution to it.
Right.
And is that the right solution?
Or ADUs, accessory dwelling
that's right.
units.
That's
Yeah.
right. Because those can be inexpensive enough that maybe that can take certain now, not all of them, because the homeless aren't just all one group. There's
Right.
multiple sub-classifications of
Right.
who they are and why they are. And there's the temporary who have, you know, life kicked them in the teeth.
Right.
And then there's kind of more the career, you know, the chronic, right?
That life kicked them in the teeth and there are no more teeth.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that could be because of mental incapacities and substance abuse issues and who knows what else. But for those that are kind of the temporary, you can solve some of that if you can find a way affordably to get them back on their feet and have some kind of address that helps them be able to go find jobs and those kind of things.
Absolutely.
So the only point on the homeless, I'm going to go on a sidetrack on the homeless thing, but it's all politics.
It
And
is.
it affects everybody. So you're right. the real estate is very politically connected, as is pretty much everything.
Right, and one of the things that we've done on a yearly basis, and especially post-COVID or pre-COVID, was every year we go to Sacramento, we go to the Capitol, and every year in May, the governor would come and speak to us, and then we would branch out, about 800 of us, and we'd go to all the different politicians' offices. So we'd go to our senator's office, and we'd go to our assembly person's office, and we'd tell them, how we wanted them to vote on certain issues that affected real estate. And it was amazing because as I look back on my Facebook page, I see 2013, there I was on the assembly floor at the Capitol, and then 2 years later I was on the Senate floor, and I've got several friends in the Assembly and the Senate. So it's amazing what you can do when you get involved and you take that step forward in real estate. And
That's why you're the boss.
Well, hey, that's why I stay involved. So I try to always stay up on things, the latest laws and issues and things like that affect the community, and it's given back to me more than I can say I've given to the real estate industry. So yeah, fantastic.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services, including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing, and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Hi, this is Steve Matley. As a construction professional, I know the importance of selecting the right contractor for the job. Power Solar employs only professional installers. Power Solar will provide a knowledgeable consultant to help analyze your current electric bill, identify site placement, and correct solar technology for your home. Contact kcaaproducer@gmail.com for a free financial savings proposal with no obligation, or call 951-551-1350 and ask for Ken. Again, that's kcaaproducer@gmail.com or 951-551-1350 and ask for Ken.
All right, welcome back to Real Men of Real Estate Radio Talk Show. My name, once again, is Curtis the Boss Doss. I'm your host. And again, I have an amazing guest in the studio. That is Steve Matley. And before the break, we were just chatting about my local area and how things are shaping up out there in Murrieta, Temecula, and the outlying cities. So, Steve, what else did you want to know about my great area?
Let me say, I'm familiar with it because I did live there, but it's been a while since I moved away. I want to say it's been about 7 or 8 years since I moved back down to San Diego, which is where I come from before there. But I have a high affinity for the area because I raised my kids there.
Oh, wow.
And part of the reason I raised my kid there, it was such an awesome community. The schools and the parks and those kind of things. But it's changed since I left.
It has changed.
So there is now what I wish had been there when I had my kids there, and there's actually a community college there. Not one you drive to, not a trailer in the front of an old elementary school that was an outpost. It's an actual really nice building.
Are you referring to Mount San Jacinto?
Mount San Jacinto College, and that's come into town. I see there's new car lots being built along the freeway. Those have been popping up along there.
Mercedes-Benz.
I see new restaurants have come into town that weren't there when I was there.
The Cheesecake Factory?
Yeah, the south end of town when I first moved there was the end of town where there was only 2 restaurants on that whole road, and now it is a whole different town. What amazed me about Temecula, it's 3 different cities depending on which road you're on.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, Curtis, where do you see the future of that going? Is this a bright, continually growing future for Southwest Riverside County, and how does that fit all those little cities that kind of are all little sister cities of each other?
I think the future is really bright for Temecula. I do believe, and you mentioned this earlier, Temecula is kind of all built out because, it's been around longer than the other cities. Temecula founded in 1989, Murrieta in 1991. I think more growth is happening in the city of Menifee. or as I affectionately called it, mini fees. I used to live there too, but there's a lot of special assessments and things.
And that's an interesting city because they took over the old Sun City that was out there a long time ago.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that's like a separate little town that's within Menifee, and then there's Menifee proper.
Right.
And then there's
that
Menifee
is
down in the
exploding.
south, which is,
Exactly. And it is exploding out there. But, you know, Temecula is always going to be a thriving area. I think that the city manager, who was a city manager for a long time, he's not the current city manager now, he retired, but that was Sean Nelson, master planned that city to the hilt. And so, you know, when you look at the downtown area, and you see like the parking structure and things like that, it's amazing. Right now, prices are going through the roof because it's a seller's market. So I'd say the median sale price in Temecula, and you know, arguably, depending on who you ask, between $700,000 to $900,000 for a tract home, which is mind blowing.
15 years ago, 20 years ago, if you'd have said that, people would have said, you know, what are you smoking?
Yeah, and for a tract home, exactly.
Yeah.
So median sale price is going up, and then because of Temecula being built out, you're seeing almost like the ripple effect from like an atomic bomb. So Murrieta's median prices are going up. So are Menifee and Wildomar and the surrounding areas. Also, you know, Hemet and San Jacinto, you know, they've got to start building out there. And so I've noticed an increase out there.
There's been some good growth out there, too.
Yeah,
there's
amazing
some good
growth.
retail out there because let me tell you what, we started working out in that valley, I want to say back in the early back in the 90s actually.
Oh, okay.
And it was pretty thin out there back then. There's a lot of stuff out there that makes it very livable now. Now I will
Absolutely.
say I can drive around there and point to you I don't know how many dozen different communities that are out
Right.
there that we were involved in.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
a lot of others that we planned and never got built because you know the downturn came and we
Right.
had sold it to someone else, but those are coming back online again. There's some major projects coming in out there, and they do have a freeway plan to come through there at some point too.
I'd heard about that in even a water park years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, things are growing. You know, Temecula, Murrieta, I think future looks extremely bright for them. And like I said, for the outlying cities more because they aren't as built out. I think that we are going to experience somewhat of a leveling off though of the actual home prices because it can only keep going so high.
See, and I thought that 3 years ago because I figured, okay, we maxed out compared to what the pay compensation rates are, and it kept going up.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thing for you. Did you know that Riverside County and San Bernardino County, what they call the Inland Empire,
Mm-hmm.
do you know if that was its own state, it would be the 24th largest state in the country? That means that area is
Wow.
larger than over half the states in this country.
That's good to know.
It is. When you add all those people up, it's the size of a large city.
That's amazing. Well, I'll tell you, for those out there that are listening that are looking for a place to call home in Murrieta and Temecula, I highly encourage you. Get out there, find an amazing realtor. I'd like to say that I'm one of those and I can help you out. And so if you are looking to buy or sell, once again, my name is Curtis the Boss Doss, and you can reach me at 951-282-SELL. That's SELL. Again, 951-282-SELL. And those letters stand for 7355.
And the best part, it's not just about real estate. It's about anything in the area you can answer the questions about.
Absolutely. Or make up an answer. No, I'm kidding.
For more local radio every day, listen to KCAA.